So this video is a follow-up to a previous video that I did called Uncovering the Shadow. And this video unsurprisingly generated some negative feedback and a bit of criticism and controversy. So what I want to do in this video is just really add some clarity and further expand upon the concepts that were presented in that particular video, because I think that video came in just under 20 minutes. And I didn't really want it to be too long, so I kind of just breezed through a couple different things. So in this video, we'll just take those things and expand them out a little bit more so things are a bit more clear. So the first major thing that we want to clarify is really the point of this video, the point of basically all the videos that I put out. And that point, to be really clear and specific, is first and foremost to perhaps engage a conversation, start a dialogue, and suggest a different perspective on looking at things. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that it is the perspective or the truth or the gospel and you must believe it, because really that's not why I do it. I don't believe it to try to convert anyone or so that you will believe X, Y, or Z, or so you'll give me X, Y, or Z. Really, the major thing, if you can believe it, is I actually enjoy this thing and actually enjoy these topics and enjoy these conversations. So for me, I get pleasure and reward for working to clarify thoughts and working to clarify ideas and working to organize and be able to clearly communicate and bring those ideas across. So for me, those are my intentions, those are my motivations. So if a person doesn't like it, doesn't agree with it, doesn't think it's correct, or isn't ready for it, or doesn't want to hear it, that's fine with me. I really don't care. It's not really why I'm doing it. Because I've never presented anything in ever sort of like a religious sort of tone, because it's just really not what it's about. So if you can believe it, fundamentally that's why I do it and I enjoy it. Call me weird, but that's just how it works. So the next thing we want to clarify is why the first video? Why did they even make the video? What was the point of that video? Because a couple people were saying like, oh, you're such a jerk. You're a dick, you think you're above all this stuff, you think this and that. And really, nothing I even said in that video was anything like that. People were saying, oh, you're saying that these diets are bad, or these little things are bad, or this thing is bad. In reality, that's not the point, and that's not even anywhere remotely near what I was saying, or the point I was trying to make. So really the point I was trying to make is basically bringing awareness, bringing light to darkness. And really, when we do that, we get power back. Meaning, even if we're having a negative emotion somewhere below the surface on our psyche, oftentimes if we deny it and force it and resist it and try to push it away, that feels worse than the actual negative emotion itself. Whereas and negative emotion is a relative term here because it's inherently not really negative. That's a topic for a different video. So we take this thing and perhaps we can bring awareness to it. And maybe it's not that comfortable. Maybe we're bringing awareness to our projection or our depression or our anger or our anxiety. Maybe that's not necessarily that comfortable. But if we actually can really just see it and have awareness and see really what's going on, usually that feels better. Usually that feels a bit more comfortable. And I think the reason why people were a bit offended by the video or by the examples is because I specifically used examples that hit close to home, meaning talking about diet, talking about religions, talking about spiritual new agey kind of ideas, talking about the whole gamut of spectrum, which is sort of a part of this in-group. Now, if I would have talked about things that people collectively demonize, or if we talk about the government or the Illuminati or the New World Order or chauvinists or unconscious people or all these people which we can all look at and say are bad, then people probably been like, oh, right on. But that's not really the point, and that's not really helping any of us. It's actually just perpetuating the same cycle because we're still blaming and pointing the finger at other people. Because the question is not if the shadow is affecting us or if these projections are affecting us, because it's affecting all of us. Regardless of where we're at in our life, we're all dealing with it in some facet. The question is when and where and how. Not if, but when, where, and how. Because fundamentally, we're all human. We're all working with the same archetypes. We're all connected and pulling from the same collective unconscious. So we're all going to be working with and experiencing these archetypes in similar but also different ways. And this might be a little bit uncomfortable. And this is really the major thing that oftentimes people get stuck on. People want to have everything all light, but never dark. All positive, but never negative. And oftentimes it's just really common, especially in kind of the new agey, kind of spiritual community, because this is really the community where people really amp up the fact that they're not something else. You can say the same thing for kind of the religious community or health community, all these different things. But people really amping themselves up and going after this perfect ideal or this ultimate thing and putting it on a pedestal. But really, maybe that's not necessarily that accurate or that authentic. And the point is coming back to what is really authentic, and then we can actually be present, actually relate to other people and relate to ourselves from a true place. Not pretending that we're above everything or we're beyond everything or we've achieved this state and it's all purity and it's all perfection all the time, because that's not what creates life. If you study anything and everything in this physical dimension, on this physical planet, everything is relationship. It is complementary aspects working together. That is what generates life. If it weren't, we wouldn't be here, because there wouldn't be male and female to come together and create new life. So this is important because what we resist persists. So we might hear about these things, we might start to bring awareness to these things, but then we think, well, it's good or bad, it's right or wrong. It's none of those things. It just is, because we're human beings and we're interfacing and working with and processing through these different archetypes. So when we say what we resist persists, what we're trying to get to is the fact that it's not really the thing, but what the thing represents and actually means for us truly and deeply. Meaning, it's not what the thing, but what we think the thing will do for us, or will get for us, or will mean for us, and how it will change us and change all of the things. That's really where the meaning is. And I think that's where we went wrong, or some people went wrong in the first videos. They thought I was pointing the finger at these examples, saying these things are bad. But that's really not even the case, and not even the point at all. Because it really doesn't matter. What matters is what represents and means for us truly and deeply. Because if we don't actually touch or get in tune with that thing, that core essence or that real authenticity, then we're more likely to just keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. And thus we might never actually grow outside of it. So that's really what I'm saying is, so diets or herbs or religions or supplements or different modalities and perspectives and strategies and all these things, I'm not saying they're good or bad, because ultimately they're not. Ultimately they're all pretty neutral because of what? Because it depends. Sometimes it might be appropriate for some people in some situations than others. And other times, maybe not really so much. The issue is when we get stuck and fixated on the one little thing and we think that's the one thing forever. And that perhaps may contradict real basic principles or tendencies that are found in nature. Thus, we may meet resistance, which again is absolutely positively our own choice and our own prerogative. It's just really a matter of what we want to do and what we think is right for ourselves. So again, these things aren't good or bad, right or wrong. And just really be clear about that. It's really about, getting more in touch and more present to our inner world. Meaning why we're doing these things, what the things mean to us, how they fit into our story and our narrative, so that we can remain awake and empowered. So that we don't become subservient or slaves to some dogma or some paradigm or some system or some religion or some belief system, which then takes all of our power, takes all of our awareness, and just gives it away to someone else. Which I think that is an important thing. That seems like an important thing to look at and to consider, because if we're talking about health or spirituality or personal development or creating our own reality or whatever, what are we talking about? We're talking about energy, fundamentally. And if we want more of all of those things, oftentimes we want more energy. And part of that is using the energy we have in the most efficient and effective way that we can. So for that reason, it's important to look at these things. And we're not blaming anything. And we're not saying that, oh, because you're a vegan or because you're a drug addict and then you are a yoga addict, that any of those things are good or bad, right or wrong. What we're saying is, do what you got to do. Go through your life, do your thing, and perhaps take some time and some focus to get present about really what's going on the inner world. And realize that when we resist all of our shadow aspects and we resist our negative aspects, we're fractionating ourselves. We're cutting ourselves off from vast amounts of energy and power and resources. Because oftentimes the issue is that diets or religions or different spiritual programs or whatever, they want to just deny and push things away. They want to suppress it and pretend like it doesn't exist. And oftentimes what happens? We have myriad of stories from cults and religious organizations throughout history that sort of just went wrong. And perhaps maybe a large factor of why they went wrong is because they didn't really acknowledge these things. Or why people will worship a guru and give them all their money and give them all their resources and think that's okay. Because, perhaps the awareness and the sense of personal empowerment has been taken away. Because fundamentally, we all have the same birthright. We all have the same access to cosmic energy or chi energy or life force, whatever you want to call it. So really it comes down to ourselves and getting in tune with how we are expressing and relating or not to these different archetypes. And yes, systems can be helpful, diets can be helpful, religions and all these tools, modalities can be useful, helpful tools. The issue just arises when that power reversal happens, where we just don't want to get aware or clear what's happening inside and we just give everything away. So that was really the point of the video, and that's really the point of this conversation. And again, it's nothing new. I didn't invent it. I'm not pretending as if I did. It's really just things that you'll find in Jungian psychology and depth psychology and many other different spiritual traditions and things around the world. And again, the reason why I'm making the video is because I enjoy it and it's an important and helpful conversation which I think is useful. Maybe you'll think it's useful. Maybe other people will watch the video and think it's useful too. And what do you know? Maybe it will help somebody. Maybe someone will hear this conversation or hear that conversation in the previous video and say, wow, you know what? I'm doing something that is kind of like this, and maybe a light bulb will go off or not. Who knows? It's not really my responsibility. It's kind of in the flow of whatever it is appropriate for that person in their own journey and their own exploration. So that's why I say if this is helpful for you, cool. If it isn't, cool. I had fun making the video and it will be on the internet for a long time. Maybe it will help other people. If you think I'm a dick or you think I'm a jerk or an arrogant asshole or a know-it-all or I'm full of shit for any of those reasons or for trying to do this thing, then that is completely your prerogative and completely your reality, which I completely encourage you to take responsibility for and to create however you want. But all I can do is be clear on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and really the point of what this is. So hopefully it's been helpful. Hopefully you've enjoyed this conversation. It's added a bit more clarity and depth to the previous conversation, which again I'll link somewhere in the video here if you missed that video or if you want to just rewatch it because I think it's worth doing. Either way, thanks for watching the video and I'll talk to you soon.